Good afternoon, ladies, and welcome to today's session. My name is Moralo Nemataeni. I am the now president of ImPower'd Women Book Club, and today we are having a session with our author, Busisekile Khumalo, and this is session 9 for the year, and it's part of the personal journey. And this session, in terms of the objectives, is to share on experiences of the book and also engage with the author. So just a few things in terms of introduction. For your information, we'll be recording the session for those that are not able to join in or those that have electricity or internet and technical difficulties. And this recording will be available on our ImPower'd Women Book Club YouTube channel. And by participating in this session, you're consenting to being recorded. So our agenda for today, it's not complicated. We've got three sections. The first one is where we'll do the introduction, and the main aim of this part is to celebrate you. So each one will get a moment to introduce themselves and then just to share about anything that you would like celebrated, or just a brief about who you are, what you do. If you're in business, you can even do a 30-second pitch about your business and how people can get hold of you. And then the second one is educate, where we'll hear from our author sharing about her writing journey in terms of the books that we're reading, her silent screens. And thereafter, the third session will be on empowerment, to say, now that we've read the book, what do we do going forward? And we'll have a book discussion where all of us will come in and share our experience of the book. At the end, I'll do a wrap up and share a feedback form link. So right into it. So we are using a model that we call the ECHO model, which is a partnership with Project ECHO. And in this one, it's where we use technology to leverage on scarce resources. As empowered women, we've got empowered women in all the 9 provinces here in South Africa. We've got empowered women in Zimbabwe, in Lesotho, and we also have members in other parts of the world. And in this way, by using this platform, we're able to share best practices. This is mostly used in the health space. So if they're dealing with cases, then they can just present a case. But on the education space, we use this platform to share about the books that we've read and also the learnings in that and how we can apply it going forward. And lastly, this is our web-based database where we're able to monitor outcomes. So we get details of who has attended the session, our feedback, it's recorded, and then we're able to go back to that information to make decisions about how to run the sessions better going forward. And as a way of introduction, ImPower'd Women Book Club, it's a registered nonprofit organization working for the rights and empowerment of women. Our aim is to empower, educate, and celebrate women. And the vision itself is for an empowered woman who is celebrated for who she is. We do this through ImPower'd Women Book Club. We read 1 book a month, and then we review on the last Saturday of the month, the last Sunday of the month. And then we have Empowered Women in South Africa with presence in all the 9 provinces. There's Empowered Women Zimbabwe and also Empowered Women Lesotho. And our network has over 400 women, and we're a member of the LITASA, which is the Literacy Association of South Africa, and LUBF, which is the Limpopo United Business Forum. And now we go over to introductions. So I'm just going to hand over to you ladies that are here as part of this session to introduce yourselves. Firstly, I will ask Tanga to introduce herself, and thereafter, anyone that's ready to do the introduction, you can just raise your hand, and then we'll give you the session to introduce yourself. Over to you, Tanga.
Thank you, Mraro. Hello, ladies. My name is Angane Zani Mushiane. I'm based in Bloemfontein. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanga. Anyone that would like to introduce themselves?
Good day, ladies. My name is Tinawanga Munjerere. I'm based in Free State in Bloemfontein. Thank you.
Thank you very much for the introductions. Over to you, Eunice.
Good day, ladies. My name is Eunice Shawalala, and I'm based in Gauteng. I think this is basically my first time joining those review sessions, so I'm really just happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Anyone that would like to go next? Khumalo, and then Tanyelani.
Hello, ladies. My name is Khumalo Motsekga. I am based in Polokwane. I'm a member of the book club. Though today I didn't read the book, but I'm looking forward to the engagement. I have a company called Tenderfin. I do purchase order funding. So for all of you who are into tenders, if you get a tender and need funding, I'm your girl. So holla at me at Kumi on Facebook. Yeah, I'll share my details on the chat. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Khumalo, for the introduction. Tanyelani, you can go next.
Thank you, Muraro. Good afternoon, ladies. I'm Tanyerani Matotsi, based in Kempton Park.
Thank you. I can see that Limpopo, Free State, and Gauteng is leading. Or Zinhle has done the introduction on the chat. So if you're not able to chat, you're most welcome to use the chat functionality. Zinhle says, my name is Zinhle, based in Cape Town, but currently home in Nelspruit. Welcome, Zinhle, and thank you for making the time. We know it's the long weekend and family time. Anyone else that would like to do the introductions before we move to the next session? Going once, gone. Okay, ladies, thank you and welcome to today's session. Today we are reviewing the book Silent Screams. And I just wanted to read something shortly before we hand over to our main guest, who is part of today's session. And then she will do her introductions in detail. And thereafter, we're going to engage with her in this session. Yeah, I think before I read that, you can just unmute, introduce yourself with Busisekile, and then we take it from there.
Okay. Hi everyone. My name is Busisekile Khumalo. I met some of you at the ImPower'd Women Conference that was in Polokwane. I am the author of Her Silent Screams.
We're not screaming, we're on silence.
I didn't unmute.
No, I'm saying we are not screaming, we are on silent. Her silent screams.
Oh, I thought all that introduction went to waste because I forgot to unmute.
Yes. So thank you and welcome, Busisekile. I know some of the ladies met you at the LeaderX conference as well. And thank you for being part of our community and being available even at this moment. So today's book is Her Silent Screams. And just a small description, this is also on the iEcho platform, because when we're setting up the session, we put together this small descriptions about the book. So this one says, finding your voice only for it to be snatched away from you again. Set in Hillbrow, Parktown, Johannesburg, Cape Town, and Nigeria. A Silent Screams by Busisekile Khumalo follows the story of Fatima Farah Omar, a mute Muslim girl who gets bullied for being different and for catching the eye of the rugby captain, Banzi. Falling in love with Banzi is easy, but she never expected him to love her back with the same intensity and slowly peel her away from the shadows. Farah blossoms, coming into herself And just when all the stars are aligning, ghosts from Nura, her mother's past, come knocking, leading to their abduction by Boko Haram and hell in the Nigerian jungle. Will they ever escape their new horror, or will they remain as trapped as the silent screams in Farah's mind? So, yeah, there's so many things that come through when I'm just reading that, because it beautifully just summarizes this journey that we've been through as we're reading this book that you've put together. And for me, like I said earlier this month, this was the first time I read something like this, and I could see through my imagination what the stories are and what you are saying and putting across. And I was just like, wow, this girl can write. So I think you robbed us as well when you're doing that introduction in terms of who Busisekile is and what you have been able to brought out to the world. But as you go through that, I'm just going to hand over this time to you so that you can take us through this journey of writing Her Silent Screams. Over to you.
Oh, I was on mute. Sorry. So Her Silent Screams is actually my sixth book. Is it number 6 or is it number 5? Yeah, it's my sixth book. And I so when I first wrote it initially, it was in 2017 on Facebook. And I was going through a time where I was reflecting on some of the things that I went through especially as a teenager. And I never actually, said them out loud because of this image that people had of me, and also familial structure. My mother was very strict, so you couldn't tell her things like I'm dating and this guy almost raped me, because it will be like, what were you doing at that boy's house, And so there were some things that I went through as a teenager that I didn't tell anyone, and I only began sharing some of those things when I started blogging on Facebook. So my journey to writing, actually, I studied law, but and I graduated in 2016, and that's when I moved to Johannesburg. And I think I was very hopeful, the city of gold. When you come here, you're very hopeful that everything is going to be smooth sailing, that everything is going to be, and I remember my first interview. It was at an NGO. They made me write a little something. The interview went well, and they were like, we would like to take you, but then unfortunately you don't have a working permit. And then I explained to them that yes, but when I went to Home Affairs, I was told that I need a job offer first before I can have a work permit. And they were like, no, we can't give you a job offer unless you have a work permit. So it was like, oh, okay. I ended up working at Steers as a cashier at Steers. Initially, I was working behind in the kitchens, but then when the owners heard of my education, they were very impressed because the wife was a lawyer. And so they moved me to the cashier, but they were like, we can't do anything more for you, because even being a manager is still way below your pay grade. We'll try and help you get into a law firm or whatever. They did try, but then, it didn't come to pass. So when I began writing, I was frustrated, all of my peers, all of my peers had moved on. They were working in law firms. Some of them were getting they were registering as legal practitioners. Some of them were doing their articles, and I was stuck there at Steers. So one day when I was in traffic, so I had to take 2 taxis to work because I used to stay in Freedom Park and I was working at Steers in Morningside. So when I was there in the taxi, in the second taxi, the one to Morningside from town, I began writing in a journal. It was sort of a promise to myself to say, okay, this is not where you always be. One day you'll do your master's. I wanted to do my master's in Harvard. You'll do this. You'll be a company secretary. You'll be this, you'll be this, you'll be that. But as I wrote all these things down, a woman sort of took shape. And then that's how the character Nompumelelo came about from the Harvard wife. And then I wrote that whole chapter. It stopped being about me, and then there was this character. Then I sent it to my friend who went to college together, Zikamani, and she loved it, Zikamani Ngube. So she loved it so much. She was like, what happens next? What happens? It sounds as if you've been writing all your life. What happens next? And she kept on encouraging me to write. And then that's how my journey into writing started. So the reason why I share that Steers part is because if you've read Her Silent Screams, you know that Noura actually works at Steers, right? She works for a fast food and she's also a foreigner. So when I moved to South Africa, I had certain expectations. And while most of the people received me very warmly, very lovingly, there were also some things that I saw and heard, that were not as nice. So after writing the Harvard wife, I wrote Unoma Swazi. And then because I had to promote my work, so I was writing on Facebook. And that is how Her Silent Screams came about. It was a time when I was reflecting to say, okay, this is where I am right now, but this is where I came from. And I was also reflecting on some of the things that I didn't get to do or I couldn't tell other people. And initially, I didn't even know that the character was going to be mute. So if you've read chapter 1, they don't really mention that Farah is mute. It only really comes out in chapter 2. So as the story took shape, then Farah became mute. She couldn't talk. But also she was being bullied for being different, not only for being different, but for being a foreigner. She's called a Kwerekwere Mahocha in the first chapter. So as I was writing the story, I was picking up things that were happening around, the Mogadishu bombings or whatever. So I was sort of incorporating my love for humanitarian law. I sort of incorporated it into, because Somalia, if you've read the history, it's a very interesting state. At some point, it was said it's a non-state, right? And so there are people are scattered all over the world, which reminds me a lot of Zimbabwe, also where I come from. A lot of us are also scattered all over the world. And so, there's a quote which is there in the book at the beginning. No one leaves home unless home is the home of the shark. So that was my journey as I was writing. I was not only talking about me and my experiences, but I was also talking about the experiences of foreign women who find themselves in South Africa, the ones who are different. And yeah, I think that's it. If there's anything else, I think we can cover it with the other conversations. And yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I didn't know about that. And even when I was reading the book and I was like, why is she writing about Steers? Did they consent about this? But now you can just say, this is my story. This is part of an experience that I'm taking out to the world. I was just checking how we connected. You mentioned sharing about your work on Facebook, and Facebook has been such a great tool in terms of connecting people, because I also got to see about the work that you're doing on Facebook. I haven't read The Harvard Wife, Noma Swazi, and then it was just one messenger inbox to say, how much is the book? You shared the price. And I'm like, we're busy with recommendations. We'll put it in the list for next year. And then I asked, which months would you recommend? And then you mentioned August because women are suffering in silence. And then you said Somali heritage, if we're reading it in September, and then February because of young love and different kinds of love. Maybe if you can just expand a bit on the Somali heritage, because when we're reading the book, you can see that there's so much research that has been done, and people have even asked, have you been to Somali? Have you been to Nigeria? Have you been to the spaces? So maybe if you can just take us through that and how your imagination is able to go beyond borders.
So I've never been to Nigeria. I've never been to Somalia. I wish I could visit them one day, God permitting. So the whole drive behind my books is so I have this can you call it a logo? It's not really a logo, but it's every African woman, one story at a time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I believe that representation is very important. So the way that Africa is portrayed most of the time, our stories are written by outsiders, and they are not very sympathetic, or they're not very understanding of our culture. So when I write about a certain character, before I even start writing about that character, once I know what's okay, so Farah is mute, she's a Muslim. Where is she originally from? She's from Somalia. Okay. So what is it? How is it to be Somalian? Then I research. Before I even start writing, I research around Somalia. And as I said, it has always been one of those states that have interested me. In terms of, I remember we were studying about non-states, and Somalia was one of those non-states. And also when you realize how much of it is actually twisted in the media, right? When you read about it, it's just about, they make it seem as if it's just only about religious fanaticism. But if you look at the history, it goes back to so much more. So it's, I guess it's my own way of sort of teaching people, because a lot of times we tend to become I wouldn't say narrow-minded, but we tend to take things at their face value, right? We take what people say about a certain people, and then we judge them. We don't look at where they come from or why they left, right? And what it is they left behind. So that is sort of my way of also highlighting the different plights, to say, okay, as Africans, why don't we stop being so focused on what is happening in Russia and focus on what is happening in Somalia, what is happening in Nigeria? Because these wars have been going on for years, and we just move on with our lives and pretend that they're not happening, you know? So yeah.
Sure. Okay. That is some very challenging comments there, because even when one is coming to an end of that particular book, there is stories about Nigeria, about Boko Haram. Those are some of the terms that we just hear being thrown here and there, and people saying we are in support, we are against what is happening in Nigeria. But one never gets the interest to say what could be really happening and what can I do, how can I contribute. But when there's things happening in Russia, like you're mentioning, we even complete surveys about how this impacts businesses, and we're so concerned but we're not even concerned about our own people. And I think it ties in nicely with our theme for Africa Day this year, when we're saying we're connecting Africa through literacy, because the other person's story is my story, and you being able to bring it to life so beautifully, and us being able to read about what's happening in our own spaces, I think that is empowerment on its own. So thank you so much for giving us that. And this is another thought that we've had in the book club for quite some time, to say we need to start writing our own story. We need to share about what is happening in our own lives, so that other people can read what we wrote ourselves. You're saying, I'm a writer, I bleed on paper, I heal with words. My light shines brightest in black ink. It took a while for me to accept that intrinsically, that is what I do. That is what and who I am. It's not a hobby. I write for a living. Once I accepted that calling and who I am, I became lighter, happier. I live and breathe books. So you're no longer working cost years.
I quit back in 2017, before I even published the Harvard Wife, because the salary, even though the bosses were very nice, the salary and the hours and the transport. So most of my wages went to transport. And back then I wasn't even paying rent. So the money was so little that my partner sat me down. He was like, you know what? I see you're working. I see that you want to work. And I get where you're coming from. But the hours you are working, because I would leave home at around 6 a.m. and I would be back home at around 11, you know. And at times there were 7-day shifts where you'd go in for 7 whole days without any off day. And it was difficult. I have a huge respect for people in the fast food industry, because their hours are atrocious, their working conditions, and the pay is as little as 3,000 or 3, like a month. Some get even 2,500 a month, and most of it goes to transport and just, you know. So, but when I left that, and I started writing and I published, the idea was, I was hoping that through my writing, I would connect with lawyers or whatever who would help me then establish my law career. So I thought, okay, maybe this writing, because when I started posting my work on Facebook, it opened this whole network of people. So I thought, okay, maybe after I write this book, it will open a door to, you know, to the legal world. And that was initially when I was writing. But then I published Noma Swazi. Then the response from people, especially women, to my work, you know, and the you know, at times I call myself a priest because people write to me, especially when a book touches them in a certain, or it triggers something, it triggers a memory, it triggers a certain emotion or whatever. They come to me and they say, oh, you know what, when Noma Swazi writes about cutting herself, I used to cut myself. There was a time when I wanted to kill myself. I wanted to, and there was this one review on Goodreads. Someone said, you know what, Busi, your genre is not romance. Your genre is healing. You heal us, but you sort of blanket it in these love stories. But we find pieces of ourselves that were cut up, and they find that healing in your work. But sadly, there is no such genre, but they should, you know. And that resonated with me a lot, to say, okay, so maybe this is my bigger purpose, to heal these women, to heal also myself, you know, with these words. And so, yeah, that's where the acceptance actually came in, to say, okay, this is no longer just a stepping stone to a legal profession. if the opportunity comes to do something legal, I will do it, but I'm not going to ever stop writing. Because for me, it's not about the money, it's about connecting with women, for women to see themselves, you know, for women to fall in love with themselves. So yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing about your journey. When you say my partner set me down, I was just like, yo, I wish Nora falls in love and she gets a partner who sits her down. So yeah. Ladies, we are moving to the next session where we're going to have a book discussion. So if you've got a question, you can type on the chat, you can raise your hand or you can unmute and then ask and engage with the author. Yeah, some of the questions came through earlier on while people get ready with their questions on the WhatsApp group, and I know some of them you have answered, but I'm more interested in exploring this relationship between Vuyo and Banzi. What is going on there? And are those things happening on a day-to-day life?
I think the thing is, when we look at patriarchy, we often look at how it affects women and how it's controlling to women or limiting to women, that we miss that it is also very limiting to men, you know? Because the roles that patriarchy places on men, the pressure that patriarchy places on men is that they have to be manly, they have to be providers, they have to be stoic. A man shouldn't cry, a man shouldn't be sensitive, a man should be strong, you know, a man should be into these manly pursuits. If you like braiding hair, what kind of a man are you? Are you gay? If you like doing people's nails, if you like art, if you like fashion, you know, your manlyhood is called into question to say, are you even a man? If you cry, are you even a man? And I find that that is very limiting to men, you know, and it also deprives men of exploring their sensitivity, their artsy side. It also deprives children of experiencing that side of their fathers, you know, because then the father becomes the provider, he becomes the stickler, he's there to ensure that the manlyhood is, you know, his name is carried in a way, in a manner befitting a man, you know, and at times it hurts children. So that is what happened with Uvuyo Nobanzi. Uvuyo could not understand that Banzi, he was a mama's boy. Even from when he was young, he liked cooking because he was always with his mother. He liked singing. He liked, and to Uvuyo, these are not things that can, you know, and also it goes to the influence of the family, the outer family. They questioned Banzi's paternity as a slight to his mother, but it affected the kid the most. And the fact that Uvuyo himself never challenged those accusations, he just let them talk anyhow. So Banzi was trying to prove that I am your son, you know, that's seeking approval. And he tried to be the man that he thought Vuyo would respect or Vuyo would accept as a son. So yeah. Will we be getting a book on Lerato screams?
Yeah.
Ah, Lerato. So when the book ends, Lerato ends up in jail, right? In juvie. I don't know. Maybe I will. I don't know. I just no. That is an interesting one. That is an interesting one. I'll definitely look into it. Yeah. And if there's any other questions.
I also just want to find out from the ladies here in the review session. If you don't want to say it out loud, you can just put on the chat. Utulom Joloka, Farah, and Bansi. Are you experiencing that? Mjolweni?
Even I am not experiencing that. But I think well, I started dating my husband when I was 15, he was 18. So there was that sort of a reminiscence of saying, oh, young love. So yeah, that's all I'm gonna say.
Okay. And then they ask, what inspired Farah's character?
I think I've already touched a bit on that as I was talking about. It was more to do with Rutsani says I'm so single, ladies, it's not funny. Oh, sorry. You will find your Bansi will find you. Okay, so Farah's character, she carries a bit of me in terms of her questions, you know. The way she questions the way she questions a lot of things. I was also that kind of a person. I questioned everything. And my mother would say, hi, some of these questions you don't need to say them out loud because they were very like I would ask, why is the pastor preaching about this and that? Like in the sermon, what really was the pastor talking about? Because he went from prostitution to thievery to what, and then he jumped to this. So what so I had so many questions, and often I was told to keep quiet. So it was that, but also there are so many things. So Her Silent Screams isn't just about Farah. It's Noura's story. It's about Noura's untold stories. It's about Nati's pain, all these women, even Banzi's silent screams. There's a lot of things that we suffer in our own little corners that we can't really share with other people. So that's also like brings everything to Her Silent Screams. Then this question, or is it a comment? Most parts of the book, especially where you incorporate Nigeria and Somalia, sound very real and relatable as though you've been there. Which sources do you use to conduct your research? Do you communicate with perhaps those that come from each of these countries? Okay, so chiefly I use YouTube, I use Google. I read a lot of factual books, like especially books where the people were actually in that country. Like I remember one of the books that I read for Her Silent Screams was War, Women and Boko Haram, something to do with the survivors of Boko Haram and what they experienced. So there were actual interviews there, and some of the interviews you could look them up online. And if you read the editor for Her Silent Screams was no, that was Kosi. But with Her Silent Screams magnified, because most of it was set in Nigeria. I actually got a Nigerian man to edit the work. So there were parts where he could tell me, Wuti, no, Nigerian men, we don't wear that. We wear khaki, we wear this. We don't do this, we do that. So a bit of it is, but mostly I do my research online. I want to hear about the mother-in-law drama more, especially when Farah was almost raped at their family function. Like, why do families always want to cover shit up? Okay, yeah. So she's your typical, those women who are scorned because she couldn't keep her husband. Her husband moved on. She had her own broken marriage, but she covered it up by being forever in everyone else's business. And because her hatred for her, Farah was less than a person, you know, because even the way she addressed it when Farah was raped, she was like, "I over this thing, this thing. It's a person." Also, it shows the toxicity at times of the family of the male, or the family of the ones who's the perpetrators. A lot of times, whenever there's a rape in the family, it is covered up because they say, he's sorry, or he was beaten. But what they don't take into consideration is that that person is going to be still around to torment the victim. By just seeing the victim, there's that torment as well. So let's see if there's anything else. Oh, okay. Is there any other question?
Ladies, you're most welcome to unmute, engage with the author, ask your questions, share your comment, and also your experiences of the book.
Silent screams everywhere. Did I have a Miss Ncube in my life? Am I one? I've always had an affiliation to like English teachers. I love English teachers. So I remember one Miss Dube. She was my first high school English teacher. I remember the first composition that I wrote. It was my first day at school, but she loved it so much. She read it to the matriculating classes, and she gave, she took me to those classes and made me read my work. It sort of gave me that confidence, that confidence to say, you have that thing, man. And so she was reading it to them to say, this is how you write a composition. And then before that, in grade 4, so in primary school, I hated school. Like grade 1, grade 2, I struggled a lot with school, from the bullying to I struggled a lot with school until my mother had to intervene and go in and talk to the teacher. But then in grade 4, there was a teacher called Mrs. Mashangwa. So she, instead of always writing my name on the noisemakers, she actually made me a prefect because I was always one of the noisemakers. So she made me a prefect, and then she gave me my first novel to go and read. And that stuck with me to say, okay, I always say, I thank her, because if she hadn't taken my noisiness or my being too loud or too forward and turned it into something beautiful, then I wouldn't have been who I am today. I think there was someone who was unmuting who wanted to speak. She went out.
Oh yeah, it was Zinhle. Just on this question that Rosie asked about Mrs. Ncube, I think also from our own spaces that we find ourselves in. I love when she asks, are you one? Because I don't think one needs to be an English teacher to have that kind of impact that Miss Ncube had on another one's life. We can just look at our own surroundings, look at the young ones that are part of our families, and how we can support them in their journey. And when you see someone doing right, you encourage them and then you support them. Sometimes it's little things. For me, my teacher did that. It was our biology teacher, our life sciences, when I was in high school, metric even, would write a test every Monday, and then he'll have stars. And then if you get 48, you're a star. And then when you get 50 out of 50, he was saying, you are a star 2 times, and then you get 2 stars. Maybe sometimes it's something so legal that you can just go and buy a packet of stars, and then when they do something well within the household, you give them a star. That thing builds the confidence, and it also reaffirms that what they're doing is something positive, and then they should continue on doing that. Maybe let's not just limit it to teachers, but play that role to say, from reading this book, there was a character who is Miss Nove. How can I be a Miss Nove to the lives of those that are around me? Thank you, Rosie.
It's the little thing. What's the little thing? Because at times just meeting a stranger and talking to them, you know, you could be on the road to suicide or unaliving yourself. And then just talking to a stranger, you feel like, I remember when we met for the first time, Mulalo, and you called me a celebrity. I was like, I am not a celebrity. But now I'm like, okay, I am a celebrity, you know? I should stop questioning it. And yeah, there's little things that actually build up people. Yeah.
Hi, Busisekile.
Hi,
Thank you so
Sissy.
much. Thank you so much for your writing. You know, when Mulalo raised the president, when she raised that issue about the relationship between Vuyo and Banzi, and you were explaining around that, it actually brought an issue. Where I remember growing up, my dad was very soft on us, the girls. But the relationship between the father and son relationship is a complicated one, because I think they tend to be very harsh and hard on them. And mothers with their daughters, it's the it's the same, that my mom was very strict, but my dad was very soft, and it makes the young men growing up grow up angry and bitter, and it can send them off the charts, or some of them, they might find themselves along the way. So I think the Vuyo and Banzi dynamics, now that the question was asked, it actually brought back my own family situation to say, yes, the relationship with my dad and my brother was quite strict and very hard. But also there's an element that comes out, you know, where Bansi mentions that he had seen Farah. I mean, they'd known each other for 4 years, but he had never spoken to her because she thought she was high above everybody else. And there's this element where at times we see people but don't see them. Because had he taken time to understand what was going on in her life, he might have discovered earlier enough to say, oh, she's just mute and she needs a friend. And you know, at times I think most of us do that. We see somebody but not see them until somebody dies, or it's like, you know, there was that person, they're like, oh no, she died 4 years ago, and only then you realize, oh my God. So you know, there's really subtopics that we need to go back and analyze each and one of them and ask ourselves, what role do we play in people's lives, and are we aware enough of what's happening around us?
Yeah, it's I always used to get this, you look mean. I thought you were standoffish. I'm like, how? But you didn't even talk to me, like. And then I always get people are like, hey Bo, you are just like you are on Facebook in real life. I'm like, okay. Apparently they always think I'm playing a persona on Facebook, and I always reply when they meet me in real life, they're like, hey Bo, you're actually as nice in real life as you're on Facebook. I'm like, yeah. I'm always on Facebook a lot because I don't have friends in real life. But yeah, it's always like that. I feel like a lot of time people judge you on appearance. Like even Farah judged Banzi based on what she saw him as. She saw him as a joke because he was the rugby captain. He changed girls, he did this and that, you know. So only when she got to see him with Kanyo did she begin to see that, no man, there's another side to this guy. He's not just this bully, he's not just this rough guy. He loves his brother. He's gentle with his brother. He loves his mother. And there's a shift also in Banzi when he actually starts sharing, with Ufara about what happened with his mother, his dreams, what his father hated about him. There's a change. There's a part when Farah says, yo, I wish he didn't tell me because now I can't get him to shut up. Now he talks so much, it's like I am experiencing a male version of Nati, because then he is now free enough to be himself. So at times it just takes talking to people for us to get to know them. And yeah.
Maybe while Busisiwe is still here, Busisiwe is also an author. How was your experience as an author reading another author's book? Yeah, let's hear from you, Busisiwe.
Oh, I've just asked. No, but I mean, Tina, when I read books, because I enjoy reading other people's books, and you remove yourself from yourself, and in fact, when I was reading this book, I saw touches of Dudubusani in some of your writing. So it was so easy to relate to, because it was like visiting a familiar ground but different storyline, if you get what I mean. So like another person I like, President, is Angela Makholwa, because her writing is completely also not the normal stuff that you read, especially her earlier books. So I really enjoyed this book. So that's why I said I'm going to now read the whole trilogy. The only thing I must say to Busisekile is that when people start doing trilogies, and I want to read and go on. Like I want to do normal Swazi and be done and do, and once you start, there's number 2 coming. It's like, why are you keeping the anticipation going now? Because I wanted to just read and finish. Now I must wait and get another copy, and like, no, why are you doing this? Even with movies, it's like you can watch just movie and be done. Why are you doing number 3, number 4? Like, why? That, for me, that's the but
No,
I
I
understand
get you.
there was so much to unpack, so I understand, but ish, man.
No, it would have been a really big book. It would have been a really, really, really big book, because each of the books are 300 and something. All of them are over 300. So we would have had a book with like 1,000 pages, and that would have been too intimidating, I'm sure. But I always say, to be a writer or a good writer, you have to be a ferocious reader, because you cannot, like, for you to write, you have to understand other people, their style of writing. You learn from them. And how do you learn from them? Is by actually reading their work. So yeah.
That's so true. That's so true. I mean, I have shelves and shelves, so I really, and I mean, when we had our own book club, which unfortunately folded, we just concentrated on reading African authors throughout not just South Africa, but throughout the continent, and it opens up your horizon as well into how other people think, how other people dress up, how other people live. And it removes, the first time we went to Zim, that was when it was really bad. There was a time when it was really bad, and we had gone to a spare. Okay, I do tend to talk at times, but we had gone to a spare near Vic Falls. And we ordered, and the guy goes and he comes back, he says, sorry, ma'am, we don't have this. And after number 3, we're like, okay, what do you have? And then he says, no, we've got beggars. We're like, okay. And then they bring a serviette, and it's cut into 4. And we're saying, South Africans, most of us are not exposed into what happens in other countries, which is why when people come here, we tend to treat them the way we do, because we are insulated. And if you start traveling, especially African, you see how other people live. It opens up your own horizon and your own mind, and you start treating people with more empathy, because you've got a better understanding of their circumstances.
I think that's why I write about all these Africans, so that South Africans and other Africans get to know about other Africans. Because I feel like we were all one big happy family. Well, not one big happy family, but these borders that we uphold so much are actually a product of colonialization. And the reason why colonialization was so successful is because the Europeans were successful in making us hate ourselves as Black people, in making us see other Black people as being less than us. So it spread. And I think for us to actually go to becoming a better Africa is when we actually accept that even though we come from different countries, we are the same. Women in Somalia, they face the same thing that women in South Africa face in terms of matrimony, in terms of how they try and pave a way for their kids, So even though we're different, there are similarities that I try to weave into my work so that we see that how different and how similar we are at the same time.
Wafiko Blue. There were two people I was waiting for in this review session. Usnazo, Blue, and Mahotso. I saw Mahotso has joined in and also left. I wanted to ask about her experience because she's one of those that wanted to take the book with to the workplace. And then Blue is the one that was sharing at that page what they want to do a threesome. Over to you, Blue, and welcome. And share with us your experience of the book.
Usnazo. Oh, her network is acting up.
How
Hey
so?
guys, also can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope everyone is good. My network was really acting up. Okay, I was struggling.
Yeah, we can hear you. We can hear you.
Okay, this was good. What was the question? Sorry, I was still typing while she was talking. I'm sorry.
Just your experience of the book.
Oh, the book was very, very, very nice. Hey, but towards the end, I did not get to finish because the school workload was just too much. But then I loved Farah and the Grizzly Bear story. Like it was very nice because when I started, I was like, hey, I couldn't put the book down. Okay, we meet this girl. She's mute, and then her self-esteem is really low, né? And then this guy comes along and just changes her world. Yeah, well, so it was very nice, especially for me because I'm young. I've been like it gave me a sense of belief in myself that whatever I put my mind into, I can do. I should believe in my dreams and everything, even circumstances that make you feel like I'll never achieve this, I'll never be this. Because if you have that someone who pushes you to be the best version of yourself, it really helps. So it was very nice till the point where, let me see, where did I end up at? Because I'm like, so I am at chapter 37. So that is like page 241. So just towards the end. So just after they go to Cape Town and Farah delivers her speech and everything. So I left it there.
Thank you for sharing and also highlighting that time when they went to Cape Town, because I think that was just a sign of the impossible is actually possible, because she's mute and she's going to win speech competitions. So for me, when I was reading that, I was like, wow, what are the things that I want to give excuses for that I could actually be achieving? And what's needed for me to push a bit further so that I can achieve that. So thank you so much, Busisekile, for bringing that to us. I see Rosani wrote on the chat to say, I enjoyed how I could almost feel how you explained their feelings. You are really good with words, and it inspired me to be more expressive when journaling. Oh, thank you so much for sharing that, Rosani. Yeah, me and journaling, still one of those. I need lessons.
Yeah. Yeah, and especially, sorry to add to that, especially that, she had someone, and also I think she also changed the dynamic in the Grizzly Bears family, because about the thing that happened with his parents when the father um stepped out of his marriage and had to bring this woman to live with all of them, and that turned um I only call him Grizzly Bear. What is his name? That's Jesus.
Fans.
Ubanzi, sorry, Ubanzi. Ubanzi, and it turned him to join or to do all these stupid things, to be in, to delve in drugs and everything, and he felt like he wasn't like being heard by his parents because his parents was going through this phase, Even, and the thing that Manzi's mother stayed throughout everything, Some people would be, because I was judging her, don't wanna lie. Maybe it's because I'm young. I was like, oh, if this man could do this for you and you still stuck around, I was like, no, you should leave him. But but I don't know how to explain that part, because I was very mad. I was like, no, no, ma'am, you can do better, seriously. But I think when Ufara came around, that family dynamic, it became more closer, and I think they finding healing, or they will find healing while with their children, and what happened between them.
I'm laughing at the meme. You can do better. Because
Yeah, I was saying that. I was like, if you can bring like that person that is was supposedly pregnant, because when the story goes on, we found out Gucci, the woman just chose Ubabagabanti because he had money. So I'm just saying, Gucci, like she was living with you in the house, but how mad I would get. Like, I just can't pretend. That's my thing. But I would have burnt the house down. Like, or cheating is one thing, but to bring her into my home,
yeah, but also you
I
have
would
to
have lost
realize
it.
how young Nati was when it happened, right? So Unati and Uvuyo started dating in high school, right? So that's why she was very pro Banzi and Farah, because to her she started dating Uvuyo when she was young as well, and she got pregnant very early with Ubanzi, right? And then I'm sure when all that happened, I'm sure she was just in her early 20s. So I'm sure she was in her early 20s. And there was also that this is the only guy I've ever known. This is the only guy I've ever known. And that fear of saying, okay, now remember the reception to her pregnancy that her parents had, right? So there's that fear also. How are they going to accept me now? I am pregnant with this second child and I have this other child. Are they going to accept me back home? Considering how they were when she was pregnant with the first child. And so it brings in a lot of dynamics, especially in the African homes. A lot of things that women actually stay or put up with, either because they don't have a choice, or they're afraid of the reception from family, or they have nowhere to go, So yeah.
Yeah, it's really teaching us a lot, because it's something, what I found? It's something like, do not judge something. Like, people always say, like, if you've never experienced it or it has never happened to you, don't judge, So I was like, us guys, readers, you feel like if you are in that position, you would do better. That's how we feel. Like if something like maybe something bad happened, you'll be like commenting on the side, I would have done this, I would have done 1, 2, and 3. But I see what you're saying and the dynamic it brings, and also the era that they come from, like us now, women are very empowered, so we have better jobs, we can like compete with the men, in some sort of way, So it's their era, they very bad magazine, so to say. But I do understand, and also some people feel like, I've been knowing this person for so long, it's very hard to just up and leave. So I also get that sentiment, So it's a lot, and especially I'm reading all these books, and I'm still young, so I'm just like, I'm taking a lot of insights on what happens to women and how they navigate through life. I can take some pointers to maybe to like later in life, on how to I can go about life.
So I think the more things change, the more they stay the same, right? In as much as women are now more empowered, I've noticed a trend of women being the ones who are now the providers in their homes, because women are now more educated, they're in good paying jobs, and they're, and so they provide for the men, but then they lie about who's doing the providing. So you find women buying cars for themselves and then turning around and saying, yo, Ubabaga bought me a, like, okay.
How do we fix that?
They buy themselves flowers, they do this and that. So it doesn't matter how educated you are or how rich you are, if you haven't gotten to a space where you understand your individuality, even in marriage, when you understand and you uphold your individuality, even in marriage, then you will see yourself trying to seek, that applause, to say, yo, my husband does this for me. Girl, there is nothing wrong with saying I bought myself a car. There is nothing wrong with saying I bought myself flowers. There's nothing wrong with all of those things. So at times the pressures that were there before are now even more because of social media, right? So when you see kusasa, ngile moto yami ene ribbon, which I won't even drive out of the car dealership, but you won't know that, So I'm not sure if even now, if women, women still go through a lot with these men of theirs. Even now, even the moneyed ones, even the educated ones, it's yeah.
Yo,
Let's continue.
the session that won't be recorded, guys. Yo. This is
there are
getting
things to be
real.
unpacked. There are things to be unpacked, seriously. Another thing I forgot to raise, Busisekile, is the relationship between a parent and the child. And here I'm looking at Nura, because Farah keeps saying they're close, but she endangered their lives when she was aware that danger is now around the corner, because she had not spoken the truth to say we ran away and these are the reasons, because then probably Farah would have been more prepared. And the fact that she even called her when she was out not shopping, when they went to the pharmacy and with Nati, and she was like, come back home now. And it's like, let's go, pack it, let's go, without explaining that we are in danger. So I think at times parents never realize that you endanger a child's life more by not being honest, and to know that yes, they are not your friend, but the truth would actually prepare them than hiding the truth.
Yeah. But also, I think if you understand how Ufara actually lost her voice, so she lost her voice through the trauma of what she saw, right?
Mm.
And she lost memory of everything. She forgot everything about Nigeria. So it was also her mind's way of protecting her in a way, right? So her mind protected her by making her forget. And I think Unura, in as much as she was trying to protect Ufara, she was also trying not to dredge up those memories. Because imagine how hard it was for her every birthday celebrating Farah, knowing that there should have been two of them. You know, Unura, guys, I don't even know where she got the strength, honestly, to be
Yeah, she
as
lost.
loving as she was. Yeah, she wasn't a perfect parent. I think she could have told Farah, but there was that possibility of then triggering all her memories and all her trauma and all her. So it was a hard place to be.
But you know, I mean, this is what I think towards the end, or is it the coming book, where you need to know, because at times they say you don't have to tell the whole truth, but you tell the truth. This is where you prepare a person that, you know, where we came from, it was not as rosy, but without having to outline the whole truth,
Everything.
because then
Yeah.
yes, because then when the instance now comes where you say, oh, you remember that moment we spoke about it here, then the child at least is better prepared, because what they had to go through now in Nigeria, because what she experienced now with the Boko Haram, which was not something she was prepared for, I think that caused even more harm than not
Yes.
even having a sense at least of where we come from. Why am I having these nightmares? You know, so yeah.
And also, when she started having the nightmares, Nura could have explained a bit about it. So she continued to act as if she didn't know where the nightmares came from. So yeah, no, that was.
Yes, definitely.
Okay, this is nice.
Komoso says we even pay lobola for ourselves. Yeah, hey, women do a lot out there. Like, I could write books. Listen, I could.
There's a lot, Puss. There's a lot. We must do better, though. We must do better. There's a lot women do, and they just simply going on about and pretending good my man did this, my man did that, when that is not the case. Oh, no, Rasha. Like, I just can't stop thinking about her, and what happened when she was at working for the Navy, and how they just took her child. And after that, they were like, leave. I'm like, Jesus.
I feel like, yeah.
Because I'm like, you took advantage of me, and then I have to pay the high price, and then I have to start all over again. I have to go to this township place, and just start all over again with my child, and then the other child is just taken away from me.
I feel also it's like the vulnerability of foreign nationals, in South Africa, because then who would have believed her over the Naidus? Like, who would she have turned to? And so there's a lot of vulnerability when you move to another country or you move. Women are often vulnerable. I remember I wrote this article for Osisa. It was talking about the vulnerability of what do you call this? I don't want to use the word foreign. It was immigrant, the vulnerability of immigrant women and children when it comes to labor laws, whatever. So there's a lot of vulnerability. And the way as women we actually phrase the abuse. It's as if, hi. Have you ever heard when women are looking for maids or helpers, they're always like, I want someone who's matured, someone who's over 40 years, someone who will not seduce my husband. They do not say, my husband is a pervert who will prey on you. So I need you to be old and gross. So it's, yeah. As I'm seeing this chart which says, we need to do, regardless of how empowered we are as women, a huge part of us is still reluctant to step into our power and own it holistically. Conforming to societal standards, especially with regards to how a man is the provider from a financial perspective, is still huge. Owning that narrative is sort of labeled in so many ways, in a sense that would rather our financial capabilities are not known to be seen as women enough for men. Yeah, most definitely. Everything you said is right. Yeah. Because if then I am saying I own the car that I bought, if I'm saying I earn more than my husband, am I saying I'm better than him? So there's a lot, like even as a woman, when you're a woman, if you're a working woman, after work you must still come back and be a wife. Mama. Like I'm busy. Mama. I'm busy. Look. I'm working. Okay, go play outside. Okay, Eunice, I think you had unmuted. I think you wanted to say something.
Oh, yes, I did write it within the chat. I think this is a very interesting conversation. It took a very serious turn. Like Moses thought, I think we need a session where we aren't really recording, where we can just really unpack these sort of things as women. We find it very difficult. I think it happens to every last one of us. We find it very difficult to really step into our own power, to really own it in the sense that I'm capable of affording things. I mean, even being independent lately as a woman is seen as as an arrogance of some sort. So it's really difficult. Even with our male siblings, maybe even at home, if you are the one that's capable of providing to some extent that they can't, it's still an issue. So it's not necessarily with maybe a husband or I don't know, partners. Like it's also just even in families as well. If you've got brothers and you're the one that's capable of maybe bringing in the food, supporting them there, you just end up, it's just difficult for us, especially as Blacks, to see it in a very positive, like in a very positive lens. It's always, as a woman, you almost as though always have to be the one that's in the back. You can earn, you can do whatever in your life, you can be successful, but you just can't be, I don't know, you just can't be more than what maybe your other male counterparts are doing. So it's really a serious issue that we're dealing with. Yeah.
Yeah, you remind me of this excerpt from Chimamanda Ngozi Adichie's We Should All Be Feminists. It goes something like, we teach girls to shrink themselves. You can be loud, but not too loud. You can be successful, but not too successful. Otherwise, you scare away your male prospects. You can be successful, but not more than a man. Something along those lines. We teach girls shame, Like, why should I be ashamed that I earn a lot? Why should it be a shameful thing? Because I work for that money. So yeah, we have a lot of unlearning as a society that we need to do. We do.
That's very true.
I'm seeing Lano Giosis comment, when you speak of Nura as a parent, I now remember that she knew the day was coming and it was close, because I remember her last chat with Bansi. She asked him to take care of her children, placing such responsibility without explaining what was happening. I'm not sure if it was at the birthday. Yes, there was the part when Unura asked Banzi to take care of her babies. And yeah, like I feel like it's also those Unura, she went through life as if she didn't suffer. It was almost like she kept everything that was painful, she buried it deep inside. And I think she was sort of on survival mode where she had to survive, she had to provide. And it's not an excuse, really. Even her hitting Farah, it's not an excuse. And I feel like I sort of juxtaposed parenting Ega Nura Nega Nati. Both of them were not perfect, but Unati could communicate more than Unura. Nura didn't communicate, and that in the end became more harmful than not. Okay. My hand is up for a session that's not recorded. Please tag me to that unrecorded session. I want in. So I don't know if we have any other questions. I am enjoying myself way too much.
We'll be happy to take in one or two comments or questions, and then we will wrap up shortly. I saw you wanted to share Busisekile or Busisiwe.
No, I just wanted to thank Busisekile for sharing and being so open. It's refreshing because at times people will give you these one-liners. So this was a wonderful session. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Last one, Tanga.
Hello. First of all, I would like to really thank Busisekile. This was a very beautiful read. It was intimidating because it's a big book when you look at it. But like I managed to finish it in days. I found myself having to sneak out to go to my room and leave my husband by himself to just go and find out. And then what happened? And then what happened? Something that I wanted to comment on was the relationship that Banzi's grandmother had with Banzi's mother. I know someone commented about it earlier on. But then I really love the comparison that I could make between Banzi's grandmother's relationship and his mother and the relationship that Nati had with Farah. That was quite beautiful. And to look at it and relating it to majority of mother-in-laws